Uh, Welcome everybody to the live. Today we are breaking down a real dog aggression case. What was done, what worked, what perhaps didn't, and what could have been done better. This is a dog that my friend Austin Laramee from Zero to Hero Dog Training worked with. He documented a lot of the training. So we're going to watch parts of that and we're going to break it down live. So the way we're going to structure this is first, each of us is going to briefly explain how we typically approach aggression cases. Then we'll watch the training footage and break down what was done, why it was done, and what could have potentially been improved. So joining me today is Austin Laramee from Zero to Hero Dog Training. As I mentioned, he's the one who worked directly with this dog. And then we're really fortunate to have Stephanie Vichinsky from Method Canine, who specializes in aggression cases, worked countless aggression cases. And so it's very valuable for her to be joining us. I've worked with a few dozen maybe, so I wouldn't consider myself an expert, and that's why her input's going to be really valuable for this. So, all right, as I said, we're going to start off with our philosophy of dog training. We're going to go, Austin is going to go first, then myself, then Stephanie. This is really big picture, so we're not going to spend too much time on this. And the way that we define aggression, so aggression is a category of observable behaviors a dog uses to threaten or apply force in order to influence its environment, such as increasing distance, controlling outcomes, or maintaining access to resources, often shaped by both learning and instinct. There's lots of different types of aggression. Here are some of the commonly talked about ones. So we have fear-based aggression, resource guarding, territorial protective aggression, social conflict related, frustration induced, maternal, redirected aggression. We also have predatory behavior, which is different, but there can be some overlapping. Learned reinforced aggression, pain induced aggression, barrier restraint aggression, handling sensitivity, and interdog or interhuman, so target based. So again, we're going to be bringing in Austin first to give us a breakdown of his philosophy and how he likes to work with dogs. Then we'll also be taking questions from the audience. So go ahead. Austin, you got the stage.
All right, everybody can hear me? Audio's good?
Yep.
All right, man. Thanks for having me again, Nate. You're my guy. Let's do this thing. But yeah, what's up? I do a lot of aggression cases. Fortunately, I've become the aggressive guy pretty quickly around here. And I really enjoy it though. Like I actually generally enjoy aggression. Like I would rather have an aggressive dog than a puppy, to be honest with you. But my biggest big picture philosophy when it comes to aggression is first I want to find the root cause. Like what is causing it? And once I can find the root, then I know where we can work. But like the grand scheme of things is even though I get in a, let's say a dog aggressive dog or human aggressive, which means the dog wants to attack dogs or humans, I will take that dog out of that environment that he struggles in. So let's say he's dog reactive. He's not going to see another dog for like 2 weeks. And I'm going to build a relationship with that dog. And I use a lot of play. I use food, but I play like crazy. But when I talk about play, it's like a game. There's rules, there's a start, there's a finish, there's relaxation in the play. I teach dogs how to be calm through play. And I just build a relationship with the dog to where the dog just loves me and believes that I'm his owner and would do anything for me. And once I got that relationship through building obedience, building play, pretty much I start putting the dog in different scenarios that the dog is going to struggle in, and we work on, the issue that the dog came to me. But taking the dog out of the environment to display the behavior while you build the dog up does wonders, in my opinion. So that way, when you start putting the dog back into the environment, the issues are a little bit more decreased, and then you can deal with them a lot better. But that's like the big philosophy. It's all about just building relationship, figuring out who the dog is, what the dog loves to do. That's very important. You got to find something the dog loves to do with you, and then just figuring out the root cause. Like, what is the root of the issue? What's causing the issue? And like, if it's resource guarding, then I know that the dog likes to guard food and toys. Well, if I know that's the root, then we're going to do a lot of play, and I'm going to teach the dog a nice drop at command. And, so everything, the root cause really matters to me a lot. But I want to figure out who the dog is, what the dog loves, build a relationship, get the dog to absolutely love me, and then we can go from there. It's pretty much big picture.
Okay, excellent. Now I'm going to quickly go over how I look at aggression cases, and we're going in this order for a reason. So we started with Austin because this is the case that he's working on. Then I'm going to talk, and then we're going to have Stephanie talk last because she has the most experience when it comes to working with aggressions, and we don't want her input to affect what we're going to say so we can learn from her, but you guys can also learn as well throughout this experience. So what I think about and what I consider when working with aggression cases, first I'm going to talk to the owner. I'm going to find out if there's any medical issues. I want to get that out of the way initially from the beginning because sometimes aggression can come from pain or discomfort. Then I want to know what the trigger is, the threshold, and then what's being reinforcing or what's motivating for the dog. Now, I also think consistency and structure, flexibility, and execution. Every dog that I work with, I go through the same process. So the structure is very consistent, but I adjust according to the dog and what we're working on, what our goals, things like what's motivating for the dog, how much perseverance does the dog have, if the dog's struggling with fear. These things are going to make the approach modify as we go through the process, but the structure for me is always consistent. Number one, I build a relationship. How do we do that? Simply put, I try to do things that the dog enjoys doing with the dog to create that strong positive association. So what does this dog like? Can I provide some kind of biologically appropriate outlet? So I'm thinking tug games for the biters, fetch games for the retrievers, nose games for the sniffers, exploration. Really, I think about the same thing when we were kids. If you're going to hang out with a friend, what would you say? Hey, what do you want to do today? You're trying to do things that each person or each party member enjoys doing to create that strong association. Then I do engagement training. I want the dog focused on me. I teach the dog markers. I do luring. I do leash cues. Then I start working on commands. Then I start doing stays. Then I do fading and proofing, and then I do that in multiple different environments. After doing all that, then I'll start approaching whatever issues the dog actually has. So I have a strong relationship built up by that point. And in a lot of cases, depending on how extreme the aggression is or how it may be lacking really aggression. Sometimes we think a dog's really aggressive. We start working with them and we find out it was a lot of the environment, and just taking the dog out of the environment often helps with that. So that's my approach. And now we're going to be taking it over to Stephanie.
Thanks, Nate. You know, I like a lot of the ideas that you folks bounced around. I really like the idea of the relationship with the dog. I really like the idea of finding motivation with the dog. Where I see a lot of people struggle with aggression cases is they want to treat the aggression case as a transactional training experience, very similar to how you would train a dog that has no behavioral issues. You see transactional training working very well. It's a series of reward and correction that over time stacks and delivers a specific response, almost like you were just moving a mouse through a maze kind of thing. When it comes to aggression cases, it's not as black and white. It's not as easy as that typically. And so when I'm looking at an aggression case, my first thing that I'm doing, similar to what Austin talked about, is what is the root? And for me, the root, there's two subsets. The first root is what emotion is the dog experiencing right now that's leading to aggressive behavior. And so my first thing would be to try to identify the emotional experience of the dog in the environments that it's struggling in. So yes, it could be fear-based. It could be a dog that's so anxious that it's just had enough. It just has no more patience or tolerance for things. It could be a dog that has poor experiences in the past and is anticipating those. Again, it's kind of going through almost a ritual that is, priming them to experience that again. And the body is completely unaware that they're not experiencing it again, right? And so we have this deep emotional connection to that. Same thing with dogs that are territorial, right? There is an emotional component there, even if they're a very forward territorial dog. So the first thing that I want to identify is what is the emotional state of the dog and how is the emotional state of the dog driving the behaviors that we are struggling with. The second subset that I'm going to look at is I'm going to say, how does the emotional state of the dog change the physiology of the dog, change the biology of the dog? Because emotional states, as we know as human beings, can really wreck how our bodies perform. And so we can struggle with our sleep, we can struggle with our digestion, we can struggle with how we rest and things like that. And you can see a lot of that when you study, PTSD cases and such. So the first thing I'm going to identify is what emotion are we dealing with? The second thing I'm going to identify is how is it affecting the body at its core? So the way the dog metabolizes food, the way the dog sleeps at night, the way the dog is able to rest. I'm going to really identify those. And then my next step would be, is, as you two mentioned, developing a relationship where I can step in as someone of value, someone of trust, someone of respect that can step in and essentially get in the trenches with this dog and walk them through those challenging emotional states and the subsequent effects that it has on the body. If I can change that, the transaction goes away. We're going to just focus on correction and reward goes away. It becomes this deep connection between the handler and the dog, where you reach the end of the program and you don't have to say anything to the dog. You don't have to give any commands or cues or anything like that. There is a much deeper thing going on. The dog's very attentive to you. The dog is very willing to explore and learn new things and stuff like that, because you put in the time to developing the relationship, but also understanding where they're coming from as a mammal who's kind of been removed from environments it was designed to live in, from activities it was designed to participate in, and really listen as a dog trainer. And I think that's where the majority of the rehabilitation takes place with aggression cases.
Well said.
All right, excellent. Are we ready to start analyzing the video?
Yeah.
So
Let's
what
do
we're
it.
going to do is I'm going to play a section, then Austin's going to talk about what he did and why he did it. And then if myself or Stephanie have any input, then we'll go there next.
Yeah, can I explain the context?
Yeah, go ahead.
Can I explain the context of this video real quick? So when I do a board and train, especially with my aggressive dogs, my first option is for the owners, just like you say, Nate, for the owners to go put the dog in the crate, or we even, if possible, go on a 50-foot leash walk in the woods for like 30 minutes before we put the dog away. But this case was, this scenario you're about to see was unfair to the dog. And I'll explain what that means. But I'm living with somebody else right now because we're in the process of buying a house. So it wasn't an option for them to take the dog and go into the house and put him away because it wasn't my house. So I had to kind of put the dog in an unfair situation. So that's the context. It's literally he's being dropped off here straight out of the car. I have the bite suit on, and that's the context there. And I'm telling the owner to let him.
Now, okay, so before we show the next part, as you mentioned, you said this was a little unfair. And break down what you mean by why it was unfair, because you and I talked about this before. I've used bite suits with aggression cases in the past, but as you mentioned, I would always have the owner put the dog in my vehicle in the crate. I would leave without the owner, take the dog to the house, sit next to the crate for a little while. And then if I really felt like that I could or may potentially be bit, I would have a bite suit on. But the bite suit was there as a safety measure and also to increase my confidence. So I wasn't showing as much signs of nervousness or fearfulness around the dog. And if the dog did bite, I could, in a sense, attempt to neutralize it. But I probably had to wear my bite suit for maybe 6 aggression cases. And out of those 6, only 1 actually ended up biting it. The rest didn't. So I agree with what you said there. I wouldn't have wanted to put the dog in a situation where I got the owner there with the leash the back tie
Yep.
essentially, and then
Tight
empowering the
leash,
dog
yeah,
almost
tight
to
leash.
act out that behavior. Also, I
Yeah.
like to think if it's an intrinsic motivator, is the dog doing it because it feels good? And if that's the case, then we have to be careful, because that could create unintentionally a variable reinforcement schedule for behavior we don't want. So anything else you want to add to that,
Right.
Austin? And then we're going to go to Stephanie.
Yeah, so like they had him on a 6 foot leash. The owners had a big part in his, so he's a very anxious dog. He's the type of dog that I say he's doing that because he feels like he has to. What I mean by that is he's on a 6 foot leash. He had fear aggression, high anxiety. Context of this dog, he was abused severely. He actually was abused. Like everybody says, my dog was abused. This dog was actually abused severely for 3 years straight, like choked, thrown against a wall, tied to a tree for 24 hours at a time. Never went on a single walk, I don't think. Never met any dogs, people. And it was the brother of the owners. The brother gave him to the owners that you see in the video. So he was abused for 3 years straight, never got a chance to succeed. And that was that. So this dog just was very anxious and fearful and had no confidence, because I'll tell you what, after that scenario, I didn't need the bite suit ever again. Like he was cool with me. So that's what I'm saying. Just the pressure of the scenario and the owners being there, because he was very anxious around his owners. If the owners weren't there, he probably wouldn't have bit me. And if he was on a 50-foot leash, he probably would have rather went into the grass and like sniffed, and he wouldn't have, done that to me. So I think it was unfair because he was on a 6 foot leash and he had no choice to escape. So therefore he was uncomfortable and forward aggression happened. Right. So, but you see a couple times in the full video that was shared by Larry where he actually wanted to go sniff and get away. He didn't really want to do that, but because he couldn't, the pressure on the leash added that frustration. And he was like, well, the other option is get this guy away from me. And that's why the bite suit, that's why I'm saying, hey, let him, don't correct him. I ignored him. I wanted to show him that, hey, like, you can do whatever to me. I'm not going to do anything to you. And eventually, we took him inside. I took him inside, I put him away. I got him right out. 30 minutes later, we played. And I literally took the bite suit off in that video. And I'm like, I don't need the bite suit anymore. And I never did need it again. So that was that, right? That was just an unfair situation to him. There was so much going on. Like he has car issues too. So he was already in a car. That was already an issue. He used to go crazy at people in the car, right out of the car to some random dude on a 6 foot leash with pressure. It just wasn't a good scenario for him. It wasn't fair to him.
And what are you saying, Stephanie?
I think you both bring up some really good points. It definitely looks like a really frustrated dog in that clip. That real forward willingness to bite, which I don't know how super willing he would have been to continue biting like that if the bite suit wasn't on. But to see that real forward, high tail, high body posture, going like that, there had to been a lot of frustration backing that up. So you can kind of see that in the dog. I do think it's a little unfair, but I do see a lot of people who choose this approach with the bite suits. It's not something that I typically do. One, I don't weigh anything. So if I let a dog latch on to me, I'm sorry, I'm probably going to be on the pavement or something like that. So it's not an approach I ever really got into. I do find that it often, I see dogs being subdued by it because they kind of had the opportunity to exhibit the behavior and go kind of almost through an extinction burst. And then the dog, kind of settles after that. The one thing that Nate brought up that I battle with in my head is that we're not only allowing the dog to participate in the behavior that we want to stop, and it's a self-rewarding, that multiple bites, pulling, tugging is self-rewarding there, right? He's enjoying that experience as it continues to go on. So we're already moving our needle in the direction we don't want to go. But on top of that, we pushed the dog to do that. So not only did we allow it, but we pushed it into doing it. So the first thing that we did is we pattern a behavior that we don't want. And granted, if this dog's been patterning this behavior for 5 years straight, one additional pattern is not going to make a huge difference on where that needle moves.
Yeah.
But it is your first impression. Remember, you don't get a second chance at first impressions when you're meeting someone new or something like that. So our first impression is, I'm the guy who, and this is just how I work with aggression, but I'm the person who disregarded your emotional state and pushed you further into it. And like I said, I do see the extinction burst. I do see on a black and white level that it does equate to a dog that usually gets over biting fairly quickly. But do I see a true organic blooming of the dog into like the best version they can be? No, I almost feel like it moves the needle back a little bit. So if we were looking at it from a transactional sense, I think it's totally fine. And the transactions are going to be even by the time you get out, or you're going to be in a, you know, a surplus and it's going to go okay. But just on a deeper level of looking at aggression cases as a whole, you might get another aggression case that won't respond so well to transactional. And that one little blip in the beginning put you in a deficit, and you're like, shoot, like every session, I'm like in a deficit, in a deficit, in a deficit. And I'm like, I'm killing myself. Those are the cases. They might be few and far between, but those are the cases that are going to make you say, maybe I'll handle the drop off a little bit better because I don't always know everything about the dog, and I really don't want any deficit anywhere. We could have done a nice long walking handoff with this dog and gotten eventually the same results. And then we wouldn't have been the person that pushed them and encouraged that emotional state from the dog. You know what I mean? But like I said, transactionally, you probably are still going to be totally fine. But for dogs that don't handle transaction very well, that don't move the way that you want them to, sometimes making sure you've got every win possible is really valuable.
And is that the process that you usually follow when
agree.
taking in an aggression case? You go on a walk and switch it, or do you have a different process when someone's dropping off for a stain for an aggression case?
It's usually a long walking handoff. It starts, you know, far away, depending on the owner's ability of control. So we coach them on muzzle conditioning 3 months prior to they come in, leash handling skills, the appropriate equipment to have their dog on. We don't recommend any type of prong collar, e-collar for the owners whatsoever, but just a collar that they can't slip out of. And then it's a nice long walk. So the dog might be barking and lunging and things like that, but I'm not the one pushing them into that. I'm very neutral on the other end of the street. I'm very relaxed. I have a very calm energy about me. And then as we get closer, the dog starts to trust me more. And by the time I grab the leash, the dog is pretty neutral. And sometimes it takes 15 minutes. Sometimes it takes 45 minutes. It just depends on the dog. And I'm willing to put that time in. And then when I come in, I immediately come in and I rest with the dog. I'll probably rest with the dog for like an hour because we both just been through a lot. So I'll sit and I'll rest with the dog for an hour, let that dog really say, all right, everything in this place I dislike, but this chick behind me is okay, right? She's the one that kind of stepped in and showed me that she's okay. That's typically how I do it. I know a lot of other people don't do it, or they won't maybe necessarily have the time frame to do that. Every once in a while I can't, like I'll have another drop off right away or something like that. But I make an effort to pull the dog out and rest as soon as possible, because I want the dog letting its guard down around me, not just letting its guard down in the crate or something like that. I want everything to be associated with me.
Yeah.
And what we're going to do now too is, Austin, if you got a question for Stephanie, you're going to ask a question. Then I have a question. So I'll ask, and then we'll take one question from the audience before we do the next part. So those of you that are watching, if you have a question, maybe put like 3 hashtags and then the question. It'll make it easier for me to identify. So did you have any questions for Stephanie, Austin? If you don't have one, okay. Sorry,
when you say the transactional, is that your typical just obedience program labeled as behavior modification? When you say transactional, what do you mean by that?
So when I say transactional, I think of, you know, there's a lot of study, of course, of Pavlov and Skinner and stuff like that. And those are molecular theories, meaning that they are stacking very small learning moments over time to create different results, right? So it's a lot of small transactional reward correction, things like that, learning moments over time. I am a fan of that, and I do absolutely think that it moves the needle, but I also think there's a molecular or a molar view, which is a big picture view, which is the dog's emotional state, which is the dog's, you know, natural nervous system self-regulation. I think if we are looking at that, we don't have to rely as heavily on transaction, and we get
Okay.
We don't run into, the reason I say all this is because I used to cry myself to sleep at night as a younger trainer, because I would achieve results in my board and train, and a year later I'd get the calls like, my dog's the same
The
as
dog
when I
goes
dropped him
back.
off. And I'm like,
Yes.
why is that happening? Why is that happening?
Yes.
Like, it's the most devastating experience, because you love the dog, you love the owners, right? And I would study and study and study, and I'm like, I'm doing all the right things. My timing is great. My body language is great. My e-collar is great. It probably wasn't great, but at the time I thought it was great. But I'm going through like all of the steps, and I'm analyzing my transactions, and I'm saying, I rewarded when I should have, I corrected when I should have, I did A, B over and over and over again. Why is it not lasting? And we have to take into consideration that the transactions have been going long before you ever started the training, right? That dog's been going through transactions for 3, 4, 5 years that are heavily outweighing the transactions that you're doing in there, in that short 6, 8 week board and train, right? And even if the owners were flawless, a year later doesn't compare to the transactions that they've been going through, where that needle moves and where it's most valuable to the dog. So if we're not looking at the bigger picture, we're not going to change the dog. No different than if Nate might resonate more with this, because you were in the military for a long time. Austin, I don't know if you did have any military experience.
No, man.
But I have a lot of family that's been in the military, and they were in Afghanistan and things like that. And they definitely struggle with PTSD coming home. There's definitely a lot of issues there. And I'm not a doctor. I'm not, a specialist in any of that, but I can only imagine someone like that walking into the VA, and the VA, which I've heard over time is sometimes how the VA handles things, treats them like a transaction. Well, fill out this form. You're going to take these medications, whatever. But if they walked into the VA and they had someone who truly got down on their level, listened and talked to them, maybe someone who has similar experiences, and walked them through it, like did not give up on them. You see, my whole family is riddled with, drug addiction and alcoholism as well. Watching my family go through rehab programs over and over again, it wasn't until someone in that rehab program stepped away from the black and white transactions and said, I see you as a human being, and I'm not going to give up on you. Like that's where the true changes take place. So transactions are valuable, but if we don't have the bigger picture, I feel like the transactions sometimes will just fade into the more powerful transactions that have been going longer.
And so does that mean really considering the dogs? Sorry, did you have it? Sorry. Does that mean you primarily focus initially on the beginning with the dog's emotional state?
Yeah. The first 2 weeks of my program, it's strictly about that. So I purposely don't play with them at all. I really don't do much obedience at all in my programs, but I specifically do none of it in the first 2 weeks. Really what I'm trying to do is get the body functioning on a much better physiological level, and then take the emotional charge off of the dog, while establishing myself as that person that I am willing to get in the trenches with you. I see you for who you are, and trust me, I'm not going anywhere, right? No matter what you throw at me, I'm not mad at you. I'm not going to come down heavy on you. I don't care if you jump on me. I don't care if you lunged at me. We're all good. We're all good, because I'm the person who believes the most in you. Then when I become that person, I have the body functioning better. The dog is sleeping better. The dog is eating better. The dog is exercising better. They're right. We're changing things. And then the emotional state has come way down. I have a dog that's in a much more neutral state of mind. I say, do you want to try to learn something new? And the dog will be like, yeah, actually, that sounds really good, right? So a dog that
I love that
wouldn't play at all on day one in a lot of programs, I just put play on the back burner. That's okay. I don't have to play. That wouldn't eat for training. That's okay. I don't have to. You don't have to eat for me. I can put that on the back burner. And when I'm ready to start all of those things, I offer food. The dog starts eating. I offer toy. Not always. They're not instantly always players, but a much better shot at playing. And I have this really good start to the relationship already. So when we get into play, I can already coach in a meaningful way. When we get into food work, I can coach in a meaningful way. So the emotional state, and then of course the way the physiological aftermath of the emotional state, those are the two things I balance out first.
And you mentioned earlier about decompressing with the dog after doing that handoff. What and another thing you said was the calm energy that you bring. I think that the calm energy is a byproduct of your extensive experience. A lot of people, when they first start taking on aggression cases, or new professional dog trainers that are taking on aggression cases, we can act as confident or as calm as we want. But if we're nervous, anxious, fearful ourselves, then the dogs are able to pick up on that. So that calm energy, byproduct of knowing what to do and having that experience. Do you have any techniques or strategies for new trainers that you're mentoring when taking on an aggression case to maintain the right sort of energy that's going to be more conducive to the overall training?
I think there's some facts in there, and I think there's some myths in there. I've had many of aggression cases, not just in my early career, but all throughout my career, that I have been afraid of. I don't weigh very much, so defending myself is, I mean, you two have much more of an ability to do that than I do. So a 100-pound dog really going after me is a tough thing for me. A 100-pound dog for you, not as much, but a 200-pound dog for you is going to pose a similar problem. You're going to be a little bit more concerned.
Right.
So as a small female trainer, I have been in many a situation that I've been afraid of. Okay. But my personality type is I'm highly type A, highly meticulous type A. But people who see me on the outside, when you meet me in the store or something like that, I'm masked as type B. Okay. I've been that way my whole life. So with the dogs, very often I am fearful. Very often I am concerned, and I have thought very heavily about all 2,000 possibilities that can go wrong. And I have safety measurements in place. But that doesn't always remove my fear completely. Right. So while I do think that dogs are capable of sensing emotional upset, that are the sensing various pheromones and hormonal changes and adrenaline changes and things like that, I don't think they always know that it's fear unless it is paired with fearful actions. Okay, because I can have somebody who's next to me fearful, but they're presenting fearful, and the dog will respond to them. It likewise. But I am also fearful, but I'm not presenting as fearful, and the dog will not respond to me, right? So either the dog is perceiving but letting it slide because the body language is not matching, or the dog doesn't quite fully understand what it's perceiving, right? Doesn't fully quite understand. It does understand that you're elevated. It does understand that there's more adrenaline, that the heartbeat is higher. I'm certain that they can pick up on that there are pheromones absolutely being excreted. But if the body language doesn't match, I don't know if the dog necessarily knows that you're fearful, okay? So that's my experience from hundreds and hundreds of times of standing in front of a dog that wants to eat me and being nervous about it, right? So I do think that there's facts and a little bit of myths in there. I think we have pushed people to believe that if you feel any fear, the dog is going to come after you. The dog knows it. The dog is going to be fearful or be aggressive towards you. And I would say after hundreds of cases in that exact position, that is not the experience that I've had. That's all I can say.
And that actually leads me to the other question that I had. You said you have multiple safety protocols in place. What are the safety protocols that you have when dealing with aggression cases?
Yeah, so one of the most powerful ones that we utilize here is multiple lines. So I'll have multiple leashes on dogs that are controlling momentum from different directions. Whether I need to use them or not, they're present. It might be an extra line that's dragging on the ground. I might have a secondary handler holding an extra line. I might be working with the dog and having the one line on a tie back and one line for me to give coaching through or something like that. That's one of the primary things that I'm focusing on because I'm not a big fan of muzzles. I like muzzles for drop off just because I don't want a liability for the owner. I don't want the owner to see. It's okay if the dog bites the trainer. Like, it's totally fine. We are totally set up for that. We come into this knowing that that's a possibility. But when an owner sees a dog bite the trainer, especially if it's a bad bite, they instantly want to put their dog down. And you try to backtrack and be like, no, it's all okay. Like, this is normal. I'm prepared for this. I go through this all the time. that is a conversation that sometimes I actually can't get them past. No, Steph, I saw it. I don't want to put you in danger. We're going to take the dog today. And I'm like, no, I swear, like, this is normal. So I like it for drop off.
Yeah.
And it is
Yeah.
helpful to me because I'm not super strong. So if a dog really wanted to forcefully come at me, I got some like cat-like moves, but they're only going to save me for so long. So I like it for drop off, but I usually get it off, the muzzle off, by that first day. And then I can't put it back on for a long period of time.
Okay.
Because I usually can't touch the dog. I can't do anything with it. And I'm not going to force it on them. But again, we're trying to create an emotional state. So multiple lines is my best friend for a lot of different things. Especially with resource garters and things like that. I'm totally cool giving you a toy, totally cool letting you win that toy, but you better bet I'm going to have lines going in a couple of different directions just in case you don't want to give that toy back at the end, or we're going to have an issue, So I often have a lot of lines, and that's one of my biggest safety prevention, or having a secondary handler, again, because I'm not very strong, but I have to trust my handler quite a bit too. So I always make sure that I have someone very trustworthy doing a lot of that. But multiple lines is my best friend. Muzzles is probably bottom of the list. I'm using that if it's my first time in a real intimate situation with the dog. But other than that, no. So yeah, that's my safety measure. And I have carabiners everywhere. You would not believe how many times my life has been saved by carabiners. I'll also keep, place beds around. I'll have stacks of place beds around. I had a pit bull, probably like a 70-pound pit that came after me with predatory aggression, was stalking me, and I wasn't aware of it. I didn't notice it till I watched video footage back, but was stalking me at the end of every session. Totally fine when food was present. When the dog had all my attention, totally fine. The moment that I turned and I was like, putting stuff away and not paying attention, dog stalking me the whole way. And it wasn't until I turned one day and saw it, and I looked at my fellow trainer and I said, oh, we're going to have a problem. And the dog just came full force at me one day. It grabbed my sweater, ripped my whole sweater off me. It was going for my throat over and over again. And I was so thankful to have a place bed that I was able to grab and push the dog off of me and protect myself over and again. And then all my staff was able to grab the place bed, and we kind of, put the dog into a little pen and moved her back into her crate. But place beds are incredibly powerful tools for protecting yourself. So I kind of keep those placed around. We try to be incredibly careful and never let anything get away from us, but God forbid it does. I want my staff to be eligible. I want myself to be scrappy enough to be able to grab one of those and stuff like that. So lines and place beds are usually present all the time when I'm training an aggressive dog.
That's scary. Austin, did you have anything else you want to add? And before you add anything else, Austin, for those of you that are watching, a couple questions came through, but we want the questions to be specific on what we're talking about. So if anyone has any questions about what we're currently talking about, please go ahead and put that through. And then before we move on to the next portion of the video, Austin, did you have any saved rounds or any final questions?
Yeah. I mean, the next portion of the video is going to be a short clip of like the end of his program, what he looked like. Because it's really all about what does anything result to, right? So I really like what you said, Stephanie, about like I do the same thing. You really like this. So this dog had the most anxiety I've ever seen in my life. I mean, this dog was so anxious. And what we did literally the first, I think, week, or maybe even 2 weeks, because I kept him for 8 weeks. I think the first 2 weeks I did 0 obedience. And I actually don't think, I see a lot of trainers, this may be controversial, but I don't think that obedience can fix behavior. I teach people that obedience can decrease behavior, but like you can't just do an obedience program to fix behavior. That's just, some things that I've picked up on. But the whole first 2 weeks, all I did with this dog, because he wouldn't play in the beginning. He would not play, and he loves playing. He's a working line too, and he wouldn't play. He was very anxious. He just wanted to just sniff and sniff and sniff and explore. I put him on a 50-foot leash 3 times a day on a schedule. And we would go in the woods for like an hour or two and do nothing. And I would just let him explore on a 50-foot leash. I wouldn't do any obedience, nothing, no recalls. And if he came to me, hey, what's up, buddy? And then we would just go explore together. And I think what Stephanie's talking about when you get to the end of the non-transactional type of training is, I call it cooperation, where the dog and you are just a team, right? And you have cooperation, where the dog just wants to do things for you, regardless if you have reward or not, e-collar, no e-collar. Because there's a time in this video where I took the e-collar off and we continued the walk through downtown, which I told people, I'm like, hey, if you have a dog off leash, you shouldn't do that. I had people saying it's the e-collar. And I'm like, no, it's not the e-collar. I took the e-collar off and it was the same. I had no food. I had no ball. We were just hanging out, just doing cool stuff together. But he was my boy. Like, that was my boy. Like, I love that. I cried when he went home. And yeah, I the first 2 weeks was just us in the woods 3 times a day for an hour or two, 50-foot leash, doing nothing. And I like, because I do it too. Before it could, this is what I'll say. If you're having a panic attack at work and you're training a new task at work, could you learn that task during that panic attack? No. Somebody has to take you, level you out, get you clear-headed, and then you can learn. So before I'm willing to teach anything to a dog, I want the dog to be at a threshold like 0. Like if he's like a -10, struggling mentally, before I'm worried about any obedience, I want that dog to feel good about himself, right? I want him to get to a 0, like emotionally just enjoy life, not be so, oh my goodness. And then once we're there, then I'm like, hey, you want to learn something? And he's like, actually, I kind of do. Actually, I kind of want that ball now that I didn't want 2 weeks ago. Actually, and you know what? Doing the walks for 2 weeks, foot leash, doing no obedience, like nothing, and then in-home living, just hanging out with him. After 2 weeks of doing just that, this dog was completely different. I mean, the anxiety was gone. He used to pace like this for an hour straight in the house in the basement. And of course, he was dog aggressive. So he would be the only one out at the time because it wasn't safe for the other dogs. And he would pace and pace and pace. I would tether him and he would freak out on the tether, but he would lay down, learn how to relax. I got him away from the tether after a while. But after the 2 weeks of the walks, I can arguably say this dog was like a completely different dog. And I did nothing but just walk him in the woods and just let him be a dog. Like it was insane. Like it's
Let them be a
insane.
little bit
Insane.
fulfilled.
Yeah, just fulfillment. Yes. Like a lot of dogs don't have fulfillment. And then people don't think about the genetics of their dog too.
Yeah.
So that's what I'll say about, like the first 2 weeks of my training was nothing but just walks. That's it. And we didn't go on walks where we would see dogs or people either. Right. I would go to places where I knew we would see nothing, but it was just him and I enjoying nature. And I didn't have to wear the bite suit. He was cool and he loved it. I mean, he would literally, I would open up his crate. He knew we were going on that walk and he was like, let's go. Like I gave him something to look forward to every day, something to hope for. And he changed. Like he changed on those walks. Like he really changed. He used to just obsessively sniff and pull and want to go everywhere. And then like, he would just hang out with me. Like I couldn't even get him to get away from me. Like he would stay all like, if he got 50 feet away, he would stop and just wait for me to get closer. Like it was insane, the change just by doing walks.
And I want to see if Stephanie
yeah.
has anything to add to that, but there was a question that came through on genetics, and I do think that is relevant. So I'm going to share that. But before I do, did you have anything you want to add or comment on what Austin just talked about?
The only thing that I would add just for general viewership is it's great to walk your dog on a long line. It's great to play with your dog. These are all highly fulfilling things. But if we want the deep emotional connection with the dog, the conversation has to be led by you, and every walk that we go on and every play game that we have has to be purposeful. Otherwise, the trees and the bushes are more valuable than you. The ball and the tug are more valuable than you. They are representative of this high aroused state, but it has nothing to do with you. And so utilizing those avenues to teach the dog to be more connected with us, it's not even really teaching either. It's just capitalizing on those to help the dog be more connected with us and see us as that person in the trenches with them and stuff like that. So there is a little bit of structure involved in like those first few weeks. And there is, of course, coaching involved and education involved. And it isn't just hanging out kind of thing, although hanging out is going to be beneficial. But we're moving the dog in the direction that we want to go. So while it is resting and it is exploring, it is play, we're moving the needle where we need it to go. So general viewers understand that you might still have a problem dog, even if you're walking long walks on a long line or playing every day. You might still have a problem dog because they might just be lacking purpose and you're not moving the needle where you need it to go through those various activities.
And I personally think obedience does help with behavioral modification. Now, not needing intense obedience, but even being able to redirect a dog. So if we think about incompatible behaviors, sometimes if we're dealing with a self-reinforcing behavior, I like to think prevent, redirect, or correct, depending on where the dog is in the training. So sometimes if I'm dealing with a specific issue based on a behavioral problem, and I like to look at behavioral issues as more often than not behaviors a dog is doing that we don't want them to do, whereas obedience
Mm.
issues is a dog not doing what we want them to do in more cases than not. So when I consider it that way, I think that the same foundational principles that work with obedience also applies to behavioral mod. And I also think when we do obedience with a dog, once they're ready for it and they're in a good positive mental state, because of course if we're trying to work with a dog that, let's say, is very fearful, not only are they not going to progress in the training, but they're going to associate more likely than not
Yeah.
that negative feeling that they have with the obedience. And then that's not going to be very helpful at all. But if I could change the
Yes.
way the dog
Emotional.
perceives me, yeah, emotional is huge. And it's kind of funny because I have little kids, and anytime, like if my daughter freaks out about something, I always think, how can we fix her emotional response first before we try to talk to her about what she did and why maybe that behavior wasn't good. But I just wanted to add that because I don't know if you said behavioral mod and obedience. I don't think you said they don't have anything to do with each other, but what did you?
Austin
Yeah,
said
Austin.
something like that he didn't think
Yeah.
obedience would solve behavioral issues.
Yeah. Yeah. I think just only doing obedience with a dog with behavioral issues wouldn't fully solve. Because I used to train solely obedience, like Stephanie said. I'd have really bad dogs, they do great. And then 6 months later, I'd get the call, and I'm like, why didn't it stick? What am I missing? I did everything right. I corrected the right time. I rewarded. I did everything right. The dog did good. Taught the owners, because a big thing of the board and trains is that they get lessons for free for life after board and train with me. So you get me forever. And I did everything, and I'd get the call, So, and I was like, what is happening? So I started reaching out to Larry Crone and, looking into other trainers. I'm like, oh, I'm missing something. I'm trying to push obedience, 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 treats, 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 play, but I'm not pushing the behavior, right? And like teaching the dog how to regulate and everything. So it's taught me a lot. And in the beginning of my programs too, the way I do things, like I work from freedom. Like I work zero rules and I work backwards, because I won't put like a dog that is weird of me, I won't tell that dog no yet. Like I won't put a correction on a dog unless it's like a super unique case. That's why I like the bite suit. Like if the dog wants to bite me, sure, we're going backwards a little bit, but I push it to the end to where the dog is like, I actually love humans, and I do a lot of human interaction, dog interaction. I do pack training. We have like 7 dogs at the house. They're all different. Some are aggressive, some are fearful, but they're all together. And yeah, no, that's good. That's good. Yeah. But just the walks alone, yeah, it's not gonna do it. But it really helped take down some of that anxiety and help them like really enjoy seeing me as the person that we go out of the crate and we go in the woods and do cool things. And he started to like love that. And he's
Yeah,
like, okay,
that's
this is
really
cool. But then you slowly add rules, you slowly add that structure over
Yeah.
time.
Are we ready for
Good.
Go
the
ahead.
audience question?
Yeah.
Let's do it.
All right, so this one is, would love to hear about genetics. I had an extremely fearful rescue Malinois who had A22 genotype tested through UC Davis after multiple sudden unexplained aggression towards me, his handler. So, Stephanie?
Yeah. Anytime I hear aggression towards a quality owner, it already raises a red flag in my mind, because it says that relationship might not be super valuable to this dog. And for any dog that relationship is completely invaluable, there's some little screw that's loose. Now, granted, there are some breeds that are bred to be highly independent. You might have your livestock guardian breeds who puts relationship on the back burner, but will still develop relationship. But there are going to be some aggression cases that struggle tremendously and may not ever develop relationship. And often we're dealing with some kind of genetic component where that has really been severed. And very often when you have dogs like this, there is environmental coming into it as well. So you'll have dogs that have really poor genetics, but they were also pulled from the mother at a week old. They were isolated. You know, they didn't have the education that they needed. So you have this dog that's essentially living a feral existence with terrible genetics, and then, you know, we've got a dog that also doesn't prioritize relationship, which is it's just a really sticky situation to be in. My goal for a dog like this and a family like this, if we had a true highly genetic flaw that was making just a massive deficit in training, my goal would be for both to have quality of life. So the family and the dog to have quality of life, whatever that is. And then we can slowly try to achieve the rest. So if I can get, for instance, I had a feral case who came in and no exposure to people or dogs until the dog was like, I don't know, like 2. And so a family wound up adopting her. They had her, she was probably 5 or 6 when she came to me. They had her for about 3 years. The dog bolted out of the room every time they entered it. It lived under one of the couches. It never exited that unless someone was coming in that room. It would bolt out. It pooped and peed under that couch. It would never once go out in the backyard to go potty or anything like that. So to me, like, that's not a dog that's going to be a social butterfly ever. Like, we didn't even form the connections for that as a younger dog. It doesn't understand social, you know, interaction at all. So we have to say, well, what brings quality of life to the family? What brings quality of life to the dog? Are big, long walks through the farmer's market every single day going to bring quality of life to this dog? Probably not, right? It's something that the dog's probably never going to fully understand. And I highly recommend to trainers and all people to study cases of feral children, children that, you know, disappeared when they were very young and then were rediscovered 6 months later or 2 years later or something like that, and watch the deficits that they deal with for their entire life. Their capacity for language is extremely inhibited. Their capacity for emotional understanding and emotional connection is extremely inhibited. And despite working with some of the best therapists the rest of their life, they are stunted in that ability because they lost those very formative months. And that's something that we have to be honest with dog owners about is if you're in this situation, I'm not going to be able to deliver to you this happy-go-lucky golden retriever that loves everyone and is just flawless. No. Like we're not going to reach that. But can we reach quality of life for your dog? Absolutely. It doesn't have to live under the couch forever and poop and pee under there.
100%.
So I remember training this dog, and it was definitely a deep emotional training for the family, for me, because just a sweetheart of a dog, but just had nothing there, nothing to really build off of. And so I remember one of the first major updates that I got from them is not an update that I would see any average dog owner celebrate or dog trainer celebrate. Like, they would look at that and be like, you suck, Steph. They sent me a picture of their backyard covered in snow, and the dog's footprints were in the snow in the backyard. Like, that was one of the things that they were like, dog is actually confident enough to go potty outside. Like, this is the first time in 3 years it hasn't pooped and peed under this couch. The dog went out there. And so, like, my staff is like, unbelievable. But the average person watching would be like, so what? You got the dog to potty outside?
Yeah.
For this dog, that's huge. And then 6 months after that, I got a picture of dad sitting in his favorite recliner and the dog curled up at his feet, right? A dog that would never even enter the same room. To me, that's quality of life. The dog is resting. The dog is resting near the person it was terrified of before. The dog is pottying in its own backyard. Like, those are major wins for dogs with huge genetic components. So if you're dealing with a dog that's got major genetic stuff going against it, and if it's compounded by environmental stuff and really just lack of everything it needed when it was young, it's okay to not have the bar all the way up here. It's okay to look at quality of life. It's okay if you don't walk your dog every single day. Maybe your dog hates it. It's totally fine. But you can get your dog to play in the backyard and your dog's thriving and loving it. That's the quality of life we're looking at, right? So my daughter has a friend, and she is the most introverted girl I've ever met. And I'm an ultra introvert too, but this girl just takes the cake. She is totally
I would never know.
Never leaving her bedroom ever. unless like she needs to eat or something. Other than that, she's in her bedroom, like books and stuff, like they're just her life. Where my daughter is a social butterfly. Like she would break down and explode if she couldn't talk to people for like 5 minutes. So, and I see her try to drag this friend into all the social things that she wants to do. And I see her friend like shutting down more and more and more. And I'm like, Leia, you got to let Sarah go do her own thing. Like if Sarah wants to go, you know, sit over there for a little while and even wants to just read her book at the bowling alley for a half an hour, let her go read her book. There's nothing wrong with that because quality of life looks different for the two of those. I tried homeschooling my kid for a year. It was like one of the worst years of our life because she didn't have anybody to talk. She was just like talking at us. I'm like, you need to go to a school where there's other kids that you can talk to all day. And she's thriving at this school and she's got all these friends and she does all these activities and all these other things. Her other friend would not thrive at that school. Are either one of them wrong or broken? Absolutely not. They're just different. So we always need to look at, we need to remove our pride as trainers and our ego as trainers. And we need to say, what is going to bring quality of life to the dog and make them safe, of course, and what's going to bring quality of life to the family. If they can have a dog who can go in a crate while they go shopping, they can play in the backyard with the ball, who can, you know, tolerate guests and not be aggressive towards them, but maybe wants to sit in the other room. We did it. We did it. And that's one of the reasons it's one of the reasons I actually enjoy working with aggression cases more than the average happy-go-lucky dog, because my clients are thrilled to death when they can put a leash on their dog. They're thrilled to death when they can pet their dog. They're thrilled to death when you know, they can play a game with their dog in the backyard, or like I said, their dog is walking in the backyard in the snow and going potty outside. Like my clients are thrilled with that. Whereas you might get clients who have an easier dog and they'll be like, you didn't teach them to vacuum the house too? Like you got this dog to do everything and they're still not satisfied.
I get that. Yeah.
I would much rather work with the people who are just incredibly grateful for even the smallest breakthrough. You know, I really enjoy that. And I feel like it's very motivating for me to stand in front of a dog trying to eat me again, is having that you know, great satisfaction.
And to bounce off what you said, I mean, the progress is very much relative to the dog you're working with. If a dog won't even come out from underneath the sofa, I could see how the dog walking in the backyard is a massive victory. And I do want to address one question that came in. So I think this one was more so related to what I said. Wouldn't you say obedience is just trick training because it doesn't consider emotions or physical abilities per se? Does that make sense? So I want to respond to it real quickly. And then if you guys want to add to it, for me, and this is something Austin and I talked about quite a bit. So Austin and I, for those of you that don't know, we're really good friends. I mean, we'll get on the phone and we'll be like 5-minute call, bro. And then 2 hours will go by. So we're constantly talking about dog training. In fact, we went to a seminar together, one of Larry's seminars, and it was a 10-hour drive. And we talked dog training the whole way there, the whole way back. And something that you say, Austin, is dog training is really dog communication. We're communicating with our dogs. And I think that's a big part of obedience. And there is a case that I pulled up. I'm not going to show the whole case. I'm just going to pull it up real quick so everyone can see, because also I think the obedience and the progress that we make with obedience. And I also want to add, we used to not, as dog trainers as a whole, not consider emotions as much as part of the training. It was like, just get the behavior. But now that's a very big part of what I would say most dog trainers that I interact with care about very, very much, is how is the dog perceiving this? What's their emotional state? What's going on in their head? Not just the behaviors that we want the dog to perform. Right. So I'm removing one screen. I'm going to add another one real quick. So just bear with me. Where is it? Here we go.
While you do that, I can say something about that.
Okay. Yeah. Cause this dog, they said it was an extreme case, and you're going to see it looks really intense. And I'm going to tell you what I said, what I diagnosed the dog as, and it's different from what they thought.
This is a genuine demon dog. Frankie, a bull terrier, is angry and snarls monster.
I'm terrified of Frankie.
Frankie's owner is Adrienne Fregatos, who lives in Cleveland with her parents. The dog is making all their lives hell.
90% of the
Cleveland, you were in Cleveland.
And fun. And then she turns and you don't know what she's going to do.
Adrienne has been bitten more than 20 times. There are bite marks and scars all over her body.
She bit me here, here.
Very scary.
Her dad's cane is all
And so that, holding up a cane, it's like, what was right? What was going on there? But with that dog,
Yeah.
so they sent me footage of them trying to work with the dog. And what I was seeing was frustration-induced aggression.
Yeah.
And the dog was frustrated because the rules in the house were very inconsistent, unpredictable. The dog had no control.
Yeah.
And so I worked with that dog for 3 weeks. And not once did it act aggressive towards me, because in the very beginning, I did all the things that I talked about where I established a relationship, but also just communicating with the dog clearly. And I have videos of the dog. I would jokingly say it was parkour, because the dog would be in the backyard and I had these concrete walls and it would jump off the wall, run to me, I'll play for and run around. And the dog's behavior completely changed once I was communicating with the dog at a level that she understood. It's as if she was looking at me like, finally, someone who understands me. But of course, the type of aggression, and if it's neurological, if it's genetics, right? There's a lot of variables. And that's why, I wanted Stephanie on here with multiple dog experiences, not just a small 20 like what I have. Did you guys want to add anything to that before I go to the next portion of the video?
Well,
Yeah, we'll hit the next clip. I got one little thing. When it comes to obedience, I think obedience to the question, I think obedience does involve emotions a little bit, because I'll give you an example. I had a dog that came to me one time from another trainer, I'm not going to say their name, fried in a heel, tap, 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 heel. So this dog came to me. I would say heel. The dog would do it perfectly, but the dog would tail tuck, start peeing, but it would stay in this crazy heel. Now, I did not like that. That dog was not enjoying that. Why I like IGP in dog sports is because you will get points taken off, even if your dog looks good, if your dog does not look motivated doing it or happy doing it. So the dog's heel command was taught emotionally really bad, even though the dog was doing it. The dog did not have a good experience learning that, and therefore the dog was doing it, but it put the dog back. Like, the dog could be happy, you say heel, all of a sudden, bam, shuts down, but we'll still do the heel. It was so bad that I changed the word. Now, I could have fixed the word, but I just changed it. I started using, I don't know, a different word. I can't remember, walk or something, and I recreated the heel command, because whoever trained the dog just fried the dog with that command, and that dog imprinted on the emotions that it felt during the learning process of the command. And then it would shut down during the command, even though it was a perfect heel. The dog's tail would be tucked. And I'm like, I don't want a dog looking like that. I don't want a dog feeling like that in a command. So I think there is emotions involved, and you can emotionally train obedience either in a good way or a bad way, where you make the dog down, the dog goes down and goes, now I'm freaking out because down means something bad, right? So I think there is emotions involved in obedience for sure.
Yeah, and what you're saying, the training that the person did prior to you getting the dog, that's just an example of bad training. And if we look at, if we look at obedience, like when I'm doing obedience, in a sense, I am in a lot of cases classically conditioning the dog to the commands. And the way I define classical conditioning is a dog's recognition of a pattern outside of their control that's relevant to them. And of course, we use it with opera conditioning, but simply put, if I constantly tell a dog down, and I quickly lure them into the down, and then I explode into a really awesome reward event, then eventually down gives the dog the emotional response of the reward event, because that is what it predicts. So classical conditioning, I think that's the dog's emotional state, which we use hand in hand with opera conditioning. Opera conditioning focuses primarily, I would say, on behavior. I do this, this happens, or vice versa. Before we go to the next part, Stephanie, did you want to add anything?
Nothing that's going to be quick.
Yeah, that's the thing. These breakdowns end up being quite a bit of information.
Yeah.
And we're not going to play this whole section. I'm just going to show a portion of it.
Now follow.
Because this is just highlighting weeks later.
And I'm holding the e-collar, but I never used it. I just dog like this.
Want to give him some food?
Holding it. But I'm not one of those people who secretly tap the e-collar.
Now wait.
I'm not
walk
using
away
it
from
at all
him.
here.
And now what I want you to do is I want you to say yes and then move backwards with your hand down. Now what I want you to do is I want you to walk up to this. I want you to say place and point at this.
Auto, place. Auto, place.
Show him. Go to it. Yep, there you go. Say place.
And these were just random college
Now tell him to
students,
sit.
right?
Yeah. They were like, can I pet him? And I'm like, you certainly can. Yes, you can.
There you
And
go.
I didn't have to have the
Feel free to
food.
pet him.
He still would have been good with them without the food.
No. Okay, so before we do this, I mean, that's pretty much just highlighting the dog's progress. Either you want to add anything to what we just saw?
That video was from a clip that Larry Crone shared. It's a 45-minute clip. It starts with before and after, but then it's a full clip of unedited, because I do unedited videos a lot. Like I'll put up a camera, I don't do any edits. Like I want to show the work, zero editing. But that was like an edited before and after, but then we did, my other trainer and I, we filmed a 45-minute session where we just walked through downtown fully off leash. We did some play, I think. And we let people say hi to him, give him commands. But I did off leash where, yes, he was in a heel, right? I only had to use the e-collar, I think 6 times the whole 45-minute walk. And that was for like just breaking command or something like that. I'm not one of those people that secretly low level stims, and he's doing so good. Like I don't want to, it's like a seatbelt to me. I shouldn't have to use it at the end, but we went through the whole city. But the one thing that I see is people that do the off leash, they walk the dog in the heel the whole time. I'm able to release him in public and he's still making good decisions, right? And like, so I tell him break all the time in public, and like he's not running to people and dogs. He's just sniffing, having a good time. So I don't have to walk him in heel the whole time, but where it's dangerous, like cars and stuff, right? I put him in a heel, or maybe we want to walk past people, because you got to think a German Shepherd off leash in a release state might make people nervous, and you got to respect other people. And like, okay, cool, they might be nervous, I'm gonna put them in a heel, walk past this guy. But there's times in the videos where I was like kind of funny and I'm like, hey, down, and then people walk past them and they're like, are we good? And I'm like, come on, you're good. And it's just funny. But yeah, that's generally what that clip is from. So that's, if you want to find that, that's on the page. If you want to watch that full breakdown, it's an unedited video, just us walking through a university campus packed full of people.
Did you have anything you wanted to
No
add
edits.
before I go to the next portion, Stephanie?
One thing that we can do to level up, I think, if we're going to, keep working with aggression cases and things like that. I train for the mindset much more than I train for the position. Sometimes obedience positions are almost conducive for creating further behavioral problems. So with heel, for instance,
Right.
I don't teach heel. So I teach the dog, I put their mindset on cue. So I teach their mindset. So I tell the dog,
okay,
right now is the time that you are allowed to go into a higher state of arousal. And that could be whatever you want to be. It could be defense. Like, I don't care if you want to, go bark at the fence line, if that's okay right now. I don't care if you go chase the birds or the squirrels. I don't care if you mark on something, you're being kind of territorial. This is the time that it's okay for you to be in higher state of arousal. When I give the other cue, because I patterned it, I want you to be neutral. And I don't have to tell the dog to heel. I don't have to tell them to sit or down, or I don't have to recall them. I don't have to do anything. We're neutral. Regardless of anything. And what I love in that is that I don't have to take away the dog's ability to make choices. The moment we put the dog in heel, the dog's only able to make choices within heel.
Yes.
If I keep the dog loose the entire time, the dog's able to make choices in all aspects of the environment. And I actually eradicate behaviors that I dislike much faster, and I create understanding much faster. So I'm a big fan of focusing on the mindset and putting that on cue, as opposed to putting a physical position on cue. And it's not quite as, it's not that simple. There's a lot to it.
Of course.
But in the end, for instance, if all my dogs are sniffing, exploring, playing, barking, or whatever, and I say, let's go, you'll see all ears go neutral, tail goes neutral, body goes neutral, and they'll just fall in line near me, and we'll just continue walking, right? I didn't say heel. I didn't say anything. I just shifted that. Even if I were stationary and I were just sitting in my building or something like that, and a dog was barking at that door because it heard someone come in, and I said, let's go, you'd see full body change, and the dog would just become neutral and just move around the room. That's what I prefer, because then I can leave the dog here and watch all the choices it makes as someone comes through that door. And if I put them in a down, the only choices I can coach are the choices it makes within the down, and they all pertain to the down.
Yeah.
But if I leave them up, every choice that I coach pertains to that door, to that person walking in, to that dog knowing what to do, how to walk around them, how to engage with them, how to whatever. I coach the choices that are actually relevant to the situation, not necessarily the choices within the command. Does that make sense?
So that's great. No, that's exactly what I do. I always tell people all the time, you have to let your dog make choices. Before I ever started working obedience too, by the way, like you see this all the time. Aggressive dog, down stay. Dogs walk by.
Yeah.
And they think they're doing something. But the dog is in his mind, like, I would rather get the dog. So before I ever started doing obedience around stressors or whatever, the aggression was gone. So before I did obedience, I would let the dog make choices, right? On a long line, on a flexi, and I would give him feedback on the choices. If somebody walked in the house, right, he's free and he does the wrong choice, I'm gonna let him know. He does the right choice, I'm gonna let him know. But I teach similar, I don't know if you're familiar with J-Jack, his 4 windows kind of thing, where he describes dogs have 4 states, right? And I teach relax. And that to me is like, it's not a position, it's a mindset. So if I tell him relax,
it's a specific
he's going to
drive.
go neutral. Yes. So I teach relax, and I'm like, hey, relax. A lot of times the dogs will lay down, but I don't expect the dog to lay down. I just expect the dog to tone it down. You're still free to make choices. And if you make the wrong choice, I'll let you know. If you make the right choice, I'll let you know. But I'm huge on choice. Before I ever work obedience and downstays around dogs, the dog's not aggressive to dogs.
I would celebrate
anymore.
a down.
So it's like I'm letting the dog make choices in public, and I'm giving them.
Sorry, I interrupted you.
No, go ahead, Stephanie.
Celebrate
what were you
that.
Say?
I would celebrate.
No, it's okay. You broke up those too.
Sorry, I would celebrate a dog that offered a down all on its own,
laid down on their own,
not being taught, not being commanded.
Yes.
I would celebrate that, and that's my goal with my program. I put a name on it at the very end, but I've been shaping it naturally all along the way and nurturing it all along the way.
So
the dog's
cool.
making the choice, because sometimes if you cue them to down,
that's amazing.
You get false positives on what the mindset actually is.
Mm-hmm.
So if I have a dog that looks neutral but is struggling to rest, if I were to cue the down there, I would be under the impression that they are resting when they're not, because they have neutral body language and they're in a down.
Not.
But if they can't lie down on their own, then I know we have a much deeper issue going on here, and I could have glossed over it by adding a cue to
love
that. I try to avoid it a lot to see what choices and what pieces of the puzzle the dog is going to give me outside of that.
And I think it's also important to point out when I
love rewarding that. Like
when I mentioned earlier.
Oh, you're good. You're good. You take the mic.
About like 20 aggression cases or whatever. For me, that's like extreme cases. Now, there's a lot of cases where, I mean, every trainer has probably dealt with hundreds of leash reactivity cases, which would still fall under the form of aggression. The dog's doing a behavior, usually to make something go away, or there's something that the dog is doing the behavior for. What's being reinforcing? And I bring this up because it's important to consider for something like that, let's say a dog being leash reactive, intrinsic versus extrinsic motivators. What's being reinforced external from the dog? What's being reinforced internal? If there is an internal reinforcement. If I have a dog that ends up getting reactive on leash and the act of reacting feels good, the dog gets a charge out of that. Even if I correct or punish the dog afterwards, the dog still may have been reinforced for the unwanted behavior. What I was talking about earlier, we can unintentionally or accidentally put our dogs on a variable reinforcement schedule. And why do we do a variable reinforcement schedule, that randomized schedule? Is because it's the strongest schedule against extinction of behavior. So if I'm working with a dog and I feel like it's something as simple as leash reactivity, and I say simple because in comparison to the cases that, you know, when you're dealing with extreme aggression cases, then it's dangerous. A lot of the cases that Stephanie works with, leash reactivity is pretty simple in comparison. But with a lot of those, if I think that the dog is getting that internal charge, then a lot of times I'm going to avoid the trigger. And then I'm also going to try to develop ways to redirect. And then when I am redirecting in a moment to prevent the dog from acting out, I redirect with movement, not a single position, because it's easier to redirect a dog with movement than it is to try to tell the dog to go into a down and not react. And I compare it to nicotine.
Yeah.
If you've never used any sort of nicotine in your life, not using it becomes easy. This is when we start talking about self-reinforcing behaviors. But if you've been smoking for the past 10 years and now I'm telling you not to smoke, that's going to be significantly more difficult. So if I can prevent the dog for a while from getting that nicotine hit or the internal satisfaction from the
Yes.
unwanted behavior, then it's
Take
going to
them
make
out
it
of the
easier
environment.
for me to deal with it later. I don't know if you guys feel the same about that or what your thoughts are.
Oh yeah, that's that whole first 2 weeks of the boarding
100%.
training, the resting,
Yes.
all that
Take
sort
them out of the
stuff.
environment.
That's the only way that you can teach new behaviors, because the classical
Yep.
conditioning, operant conditioning that has taken place over time is so incredibly strong.
Mhm.
It's not until you make that previous conditioning a little fuzzy that you're going to be able to instill anything new on top of it. So if you're going to swing the pendulum, this is actually what my speech in the IACP is all about. If you're going to swing the pendulum from old behavior to new behavior and skip that middle section, you'll never be able to combat the conditioning that's gone on this first side, because it's more powerful than anything you could offer. If this was super valuable to the dog, they would have already been choosing that, right? But this is more valuable than the dog. And if we don't have that numbing period in between, this conditioning, it won't take the cake at all. So yeah, we've got to have that period where we are lessening the conditioning here in order to increase the conditioning here. Yeah.
And with this next section
said,
we're
well
about
said.
to play, you're going to see positive punishment. Now, I do use positive punishment in my training. Now, when I use it, I try to make it to where it's not personal. Not everyone agrees with this, or not personal, but not like emotion behind it.
Emotional.
Now, yeah, just like cause and effect. The dog understands the rules.
Yeah.
The dog violates the rules. Okay, now there's some kind of correction. And I always stick to using tools. I try not to use my hands for corrections. And I also try not to let a dog know that I'm upset. Now, again, not everyone agrees with that. I talked to a trainer not very long ago who's a incredibly accomplished trainer, wins multiple trophies, stands on the podium, competes in sports. And this trainer told me that they want the dog to know when they're upset. So as the saying goes, the only thing two dog trainers can agree on is that the third is wrong. So I just wanted to point that out because I want you to break down what you did here and why you did it.
Yeah. Let me give the context real quick though, because you're going to see me punish him for the first time. So this dog has not met another dog for 3 years of his life, and every dog scenario he's chewed through fences to go attack dogs. He would attack dogs on sight. So the context before, because remember, like, he's going to see dogs. He was cool with the dogs in the house, in the crate and stuff. He used to go at them just randomly. I wouldn't correct it. He would go at them, and I would just go, send him away. Hey, go. Don't do that. And I advocate for my dogs. All my dogs trust me. They're like, oh, he's not going to let this dog bark in my crate much longer. But the context was, this was not day one, right? This was like 3 weeks, 4 weeks in, where we were going on, pack walks together, where they weren't interacting intimately. He didn't have a chance to be aggressive. I would actually, a lot of times he'd be in his crate and I would bring Mateo, my dog, over and just love on Mateo in front of him in my crate. Like, I learned that from Larry. I just don't know why it works, but it worked really well. Don't know the science behind that. But well, you want to know something crazy about my dog? My dog Mateo, the first day that Otto arrived, he was in his crate. Otto, by the way, is broken out of like 6 crates, and like we had him in his crate with the door open within like 30 minutes with no punishment. Like, he was cool, just relaxing, laying down on his own. By the way, I like to reward the relaxation, not the cue. And Mateo went up to his crate and sat right in front of him, and he starts going, rah, 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 and Mateo just lays down as he starts barking and just sits there. And he's rah, 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 rah. And then he finally stops. He lays down. Mateo gets up and walks away. And I was like, I didn't train that, dude. Like, Mateo, like, he just gets so into these aggressive dogs. Like, every new aggressive dog that he sees that struggles, like, he'll just go and sit next to their crate. Usually I'm like, if a dog approaches a crate and the dog is nervous, I send the dog away. But this, like, kind of, I let it happen. And it was really cool. Like, Otto was just like, this dog did nothing and just laid down. And then as soon as Otto relaxed, like, Mateo left. So it's almost like he just trained him. And I don't know what he did. I'm usually like, go, give him space so the dog that is uncomfortable can see me handling the situation. But I let it happen and it worked out really well. But that's the context. I did a lot of work around, you know, him inside with the dogs crated. I didn't separate him. He's crated with the dogs, you know. So he's still social, but he just had problems interacting. So this was the point where I was like, it's time to finally get him to play with dogs. And my goal with punishment is that when I finally punish a behavior, I should see the opposite behavior happen in the same session. So you'll see me punish the behavior, and then literally 30 minutes later, I take his muzzle off and he plays with Mateo. And that's the first dog he's played with since like his existence. He lives with another dog, Misha. So they've been cool. They grew up together. But outside of that, Mateo's the first dog he's ever played with. And it just, I never had to do that again either. I only had to punish the dog thing once and he was cool the rest of the time. But that leading up to it, it wasn't just day one, put him with a dog and just blast him. That's not what happened. There was a lot of work beforehand, you know, of building him up. So you can go ahead and play the clip
Yeah.
here.
And so it's important to point out you had developed a relationship before this. It wasn't 2 days into the process, more like 4 weeks or a month, which that's the length of a lot of people's stay and train is 4 weeks.
And he has a muzzle on here too. This is where I will use muzzles, but my goal with the muzzle is like, I got to get it off as fast as possible. I don't really like muzzles that much, but they're useful.
So I'm going to show your correction, and then I'm going to show how the dog looks after, and then we'll talk about it. And that's probably all we're going to have time for, unfortunately. But I think we still talked about a lot of very important things as it relates to dog aggression. Oops.
Yeah,
I'm going to rewind a little bit so we don't miss it and make sure we have the audio on.
There you go. Feel free to pet him. No. No. Hey, no. Enough. Hey, enough. Stop. Enough.
So very firm.
We're going to take off the muzzle here. Boy,
so this is 30 minutes later.
So there's the play. There it is.
And then it goes to a couple more clips with him playing with other dogs and eventually the whole pack. This is the next day.
All right. What you did, why you did it, and if you think you could have done something better.
Yeah. So what I did was essentially I learned from Ivan and Larry something that I never heard about punishment before, which, you know, we can go into on a later day. We can break it down later. But basically what I did was I interrupted the behavior. I think punishment should start with an interruption. The interruption could be something as simple as a spray bottle or even a verbal no, right? But I interrupted the behavior with the leash. And the punishment didn't happen until after I stopped him. So what you saw me doing, no, pop, 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 knock it off, little nose taps. I just wanted him to, in that moment, sounds pretty bad, but I wanted him to feel like, hey, like I'm going to destroy you. It sounds bad, but just hear me out. Because what it led to, that was first and only time I ever had to punish the dog aggression. The human aggression I never had to punish. We just fixed that by just getting him to play with strangers and putting him in like the car and having him hop out to a stranger in a bite suit and he would just play. But that dog thing, you know, I punished with positive punishment, leash pops. I just made it very unpleasant for him. But then immediately I took him right outside with Mateo, took the muzzle off because you open a gap, right? He's like, okay, I just got stopped for the first time in my life. He told me, no, that was unpleasant. I don't really know what I'm supposed to do then. So I took him outside and I showed him the right thing to do, right? Took off the muzzle. They started playing. I allowed it to happen. And then I started adding other dogs until eventually he's playing with random dogs. And one of the tests that I do before a dog goes home is I do the unexpected dog pop-up where I'll have a dog he's never met. He doesn't expect it. Dog comes out of nowhere and just runs out of nowhere up to him. And that's on my Facebook too. And he passed with flying colors. It was like, he looked, he was like, oh, cool, dog. And then just went back to sniffing. So I do a lot of tests, like real life scenarios, right? Because people are going to have dogs run up to you. He needs to see that and go, oh, there's a dog. But I made him love dogs because really on the inside, I feel like he didn't really want to feel that way. I don't think it was true, like deep aggression. I think he just never had a chance to show somebody that he's not a monster. And I gave him the chance, right? And I gave him the ability to make choices. I'm like, hey, I'm going to trust you here, man. Like, you know, I had the leash on. You know, if you went to go at Mateo, I would stop it, do it again. But I never had to do it again. And every dog after that. But in the house, did I have to sometimes look at him and be like, hey, cut it out? Yeah, but that's all I had to do. Snap my finger, look at him, knock it off. But no more positive punishment after that. So that was the first and only. And then I think maybe there might have been one other time that he kind of went at a dog in a crate, but it wasn't nearly as firm. It was like, hey, no, pop, that's it. Like at the end, the no is so strong. It's just I just verbally correct him. I'm like, no, and he's like, got it. And he's doing really well with owners too. Because here's the thing: this board and train means nothing. I won't consider this a success until this dog either passes away without the owners ever saying he did it again, or at least we get like 3, 4, 5 years in and they're like, he's still doing great. Like, so I don't consider this a success yet. Like, sure, he's great. He's doing wonderful. But we're still doing lessons now. And again, like we get 5 years later and I hear no more incidents, then I can be like, cool, we actually did something. But if I hear in a year that I get a call, something was missing the training. And of course I've been training for 3 years, but hasn't happened yet. It's only been one dog. Nobody has 100% success rate, but I really put a lot of work into this dog. Like, I mean, like insane. This dog was one of the hardest. Just because the anxiety, I guess. He was just so anxious. Never had a life. He never had a life, right? He was tied to a tree 24 hours a day for 3 years straight, abused, thrown around, choked, yelled at, hit. So that's
And
what
when
was
you-
happening in that. And yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, and when you say the one and only time, you don't mean the use of positive punishment. You mean that level of a correction, because you use the remote collar
That
throughout as
level-
positive punishment.
Yeah, sometimes. So that level of correction never happened for dogs again. And actually, I never had to use punishment for dogs after that again, except for one time he went at a dog in a crate. But I verbally correct. I was like, no, go. And I sent him away. Like it wasn't even positive. So that was the only time I had a positive punishment. But the only reason that worked, is that not because of how hard I went, because I went pretty firm on him. But the only reason it worked is because the weeks that I worked with him leading up to that, playing with him. And my play, by the way, when I talk about play, I just made a wonderful video breaking it down. I want you to think of play like football. It's not just your dog brings you a ball or a toy. Has a clear start, has a finish, it has breaks, there's rules, there's ways to win, there are ways to lose, it's competitive, and there's structure, and we can add obedience in play. And it builds rapport with your dog. So play is something that we start and we finish. And then when I say all done, I say relax. My dogs go back into, now we're calm again. We're going to relax in the house. And I don't really do play in the house. We keep play for outside. We chill in the house, man. I don't use obedience in the house. Like, sure, when I'm training downstairs, you'll see dogs on place, but like my own house, I don't use obedience. Like there's no obedience done in my house. I teach my dogs choice, right? When people come in the house, like they could be excited, they can't jump. And if my guest doesn't want them, they're like, go, right? Hey, go, leave it, knock it off, right? And they'll go hang out, relax. So that was first time and last time I had to use positive punishment for dogs. And that was 3 years of pent up dog aggression. And it led to him playing with over, I think, like 20 different dogs. Like I would do random dogs that he's never met, just pop up out of nowhere, off leash, wonderful. And he loves playing with dogs now. Like we did our first lesson where I brought over 2 random dogs he's never met, and I just let him go. He ran to the fence, looked at mom, and then he just went and sniffed. And then I let the dogs in. He was great. And then mom played, and we all played. It was great. We played fetch, and yeah, it was really cool. 2 more random dogs. So it's like, it's still there. But again, I don't consider board and train a success until we get like years past, right? Because this is the biggest problem I deal with is I get people all the time who went through board and trains and they tell me, hey, my dog was great for 3 months and then boom, he's back to normal. And the underlying thing that happens with everybody is, okay, show me what you know. And their communication, they're doing everything wrong. And I'm like, okay, the trainer never worked with the person after the board and train to teach them how to truly communicate, not to reinforce commands. I don't really care about obedience. I really don't care about obedience that much. Behavior formed in the house and the choices you let your dog make. So yeah, I don't even know why I got off on that tangent, but yeah, I never had to punish him for dogs again after this. Like he was just perfect. And then I never had to punish the human aggression again. Like that never had to happen. That just went away.
So-
He loves people now.
So what's your take, Stephanie? What would you do different, or what would your recommendations be?
You know, I'm not against the idea of using positive punishment for a dog. You know, with this particular instance, I think the positive punishment was a little bit unfair. And the reason I think that is because the dog had no ability to make any alternate choices. We actually set up the environment in such a way that all alternate choices were blocked. So he's on a short leash, he was on a muzzle, and you were pinned against that pool table and a bunch of stuff in the back of the room. What else was he supposed to do? We already know he goes into defense when he's around other dogs. We already know that that's an issue. And then after the correction was given, I didn't get to see an extension on that clip, but it didn't look necessarily like we were able to guide him into an alternate choice that we would have preferred. You know, more of just leaving him in that situation. And I think he was forgiving of the moment because you did take time to develop the relationship. But what would have been really great is to have patterned, anytime you feel uncomfortable, bud, move away, come check in with me. Anytime you, and we could have patterned that very well on the pack walks when you were out there on the longer lines. And you would, I'm sure you would have seen at some point a little stiff or whatever, and give a cue to come check in with me. Anytime you feel that, come check in with me over and over and over again. And then what I would have done is I would have allowed him to introduce on the pack walk while everyone's kind of in motion. We're not in anybody's turf. Everybody's kind of moving. It's a very familiar thing that we've done many times. Nobody's trapped. We've got a lot of space. Then let him go in and make some decisions. You've got 2-3 seconds, bud. Feeling a little uncomfortable? Okay, come check in with me, right? We probably could have avoided that correction. I don't know if I would say altogether, but we probably could have avoided the intensity of the correction and made the situation more clear and made it just a little bit more fair to him. But I think that it worked out for you in the end because you spent so much time on the relationship in those weeks prior. I think he was like, I don't necessarily know what to do or what not to do in this situation, but you're someone who's made an impression on me over the last few weeks. So I am going to yield to this and I am going to learn from this. But I think it could have been a lot more clear.
Yeah, and there's a lot of other parts in the video.
I like that. That's good.
As well, since we're pretty much out of time, is this video posted, Austin?
This one is not posted yet. No, this one's not. Oh, it is actually posted. It's just private. I can post it though. We can post it. And
if we are to go through it just real quick, there's portions where he's playing. You have examples of him doing obedience out in town, meeting new people, using the bite suit for safety purposes. So it just shows Austin's full process that he was doing and the progress that the dog was making throughout. So it's about a 24-minute video. We see more examples. We see the dog relaxing instead of pacing back and forth. That goes back to the mindset that you were talking about, having him enjoy, looks like a bone or work to eat feeder, something like that. More exposure, environmental exposure, how the dog reacts, what Austin does in those moments. So there's a lot more.
What's the dog's name, by the way? We've been calling him the dog the whole time, but what's his name? Otto. Oh, that's right. You were talking about that with the screen and everything. Otto. Okay. That's a cute
Otto, yeah. So we are out of time. If anybody who's watching this wants us to do a part 2, put that in the comments. And if I see enough of those, maybe Stephanie and Austin will agree to come in and do a part 2 where we can go through the rest of this. Any saved rounds from either of you, or does anyone that's watching want to ask a question to Stephanie or Austin before we wrap this up? Any saved rounds from you guys?
Yeah, let's leave it open to questions. It's just pretty cool to get on camera with you, Stephanie, because I watch your content a lot, and like there's a lot of trainers that I won't watch. Just I know there's the dog training world is just full of just like wrong information, and I only watch a select few people because I'm way more in tune with behavior. And I've only been training 3 years. I don't know how I even got this far doing crazy dogs. Like I have insane dogs that have came through me that I didn't film, which I would have, that I fixed. Like 2 dogs killing each other in the home, went through 3 trainers, doing perfect. It's been a year later, not a single incident. We've done 2 lessons post-board. They're doing wonderful. They don't care about the obedience. I don't know how I've done it. And I haven't been very heavy-handed or e-collar heavy either, even though in that moment, that was like crazy. But those moments are few and far between. Like I'm very light-handed. Because I look up to Larry a lot, and he's always like, I try to be as light-handed as possible with the dogs, but there's times and a place where you're like, you have to stop this now, and you're going to feel really bad about this for a second. But most of the time, if you find that you just work with the dog and it's not that severe, the issues just go away on their own. You don't have to punish them. They vanish because it wasn't really anything real. You know, you get the dog, it wasn't fulfilled. And then you go to put the dog in a scenario that they're supposed to blow up in, and all of a sudden they do nothing. And it's like, well, I don't have to deal with this now. The dog just doesn't care anymore because I gave him an outlet, you know, and made sense to him.
Any save rounds, Stephanie?
You know, I think the last thing that I would say is take what you will from the conversations here and the case here, but the longer that you work with aggression work, and whoever out there is doing this, be prepared to have your foot put in your mouth, your butt handed to you. Be prepared to completely revolutionize your entire training system. Be prepared to admit that you are wrong, because each new dog that comes in is going to work you over, right? You'll get on a 6-month stretch where you're like, I am God's gift to dogs, and a new dog's going to come in, and you're like, I have never had so many sleepless nights in my life, right? And I am not going to give up. I had that. You know, 5 years ago, 5 or 6 years ago, I had 2 dogs in 1 year that did that to me. Absolutely rocked my world. And I was not sleeping. I was so stressed out. I was losing weight, man. And I was like, something has to change. And I completely changed our entire system of dog training at my facility. So everything that I taught my staff, everything that I had done, everything I said, this is not good enough for what we want to do. It's not good enough. We can be okay, but I want us to be good. And this is not good enough. And I had to retrain all of my staff. We were studying, we were experimenting, we were doing all of these things. And it was a super humbling experience. And I'm ready to do it all again if the right dog walks through the door. So keep that in mind. That, no matter who shows you aggression cases, no matter how long the trainer's been training, there is a dog out there that's going to rock their world, your world, and make you really rethink everything that you learned. Because if we could fully understand behavior, we wouldn't have a bunch of theories in place, and none of us will ever fully understand behavior until we become a dog, right? We don't even understand human behavior. My gosh, we still can't figure out why we do certain things. So just be prepared to pivot and be prepared to let go of your ego, because the dogs will absolutely make certain that you no longer have one. You no longer have one at the end of the day.
Yeah. I lost my ego. I lost my ego the first time that I had an ego. I was starting to get, like, you know, I was 2 years in. I'm like, man, I'm killing it. And I had this pit bull that had this issue, off leash, right, with an e-collar. He takes off after a dog. I go to correct him. Bam, he goes right through the correction. And I was like, yep, I'm completely wrong in everything I do, and now it's time to reconstruct. And that tore me up. Nothing happened. It was all good. But, like, from that moment on, I'm like, oh my goodness, I don't know anything. I don't know anything. I need to learn more. So, and then, like, I've had dogs that came. Yeah. So, but I'm always willing, like, I'm trying to be a student all the time, because I'm tired of seeing a lot of ego. That's why I really try to put out a lot of just unedited videos. Like, I don't like before and afters that much. Like, unedited every day. I'll go live and train dogs, and like, I'll make mistakes, you know, and I just want to show people I just, like, enjoy it. And I'm new at this, relatively speaking. I've studied a lot, but, you know, so, you know, it's like really cool to be able to have, you know, Nate as a mentor and get to talk to you and hear different perspectives from different trainers who are, like, way above me, because I'm, like, way below average in my opinion. You know, Nate's always, he's so good. I'm like, I'm below average.
Austin, I have the same talk with myself every morning, and it's like, why do these people want to talk to me? Like, I am way below average. Like, why am I on this?
Like,
I feel the same.
Yeah.
Well, it's the Dunning-Kruger
imposter syndrome.
And this is why I think conversations like this are so important. And it's one of the reasons why when Austin and I were talking about this, your name came up as an expert, Stephanie, in dealing with aggression. I was like, if we can get her on this, that would just greatly increase the value. And then we also have to remember, you know, I'm going to use a jiu-jitsu analogy. people that follow my work know that I'm obsessed with jujitsu. I love it. Who's been tapped out more, the white belt or the black belt? The black belt's been tapped out way more. It's part of the journey to get there. So we're all going to make mistakes, but as long as we can learn from those mistakes.
Oh, yeah.
So again, it looks like I froze up, but there we go. I really appreciate
There we
both
go.
of you taking the time to come on to do this live Q&A on my channel
You
with
too,
me.
man.
Everyone who's been watching, thank you so much. And super thank you to Stephanie. Your experience, your frame of reference is invaluable, even if you don't think it's as valuable as others perceive it to
Oh,
be.
it's great. It's great.
Well,
I love
super
the
glad
shorts.
that you guys invited me
I love
on.
the
Thank you.
shorts. Yes.
Sorry, I didn't hear you. I didn't hear you, Stephanie. Austin was geeking out there.
Let me stop. Yeah, let me
I
stop.
was just saying thank you for having me. I had a great time. It's really enjoyable to have civil discussions about dog training. The dog training world is
Yeah.
yucky time, so it's really
It can
nice
be
to
very
just
toxic.
have positive interactions with people and just bounce ideas off of us, because I don't know if anyone's necessarily right. I don't know if there is an avenue that's right.
Yeah.
But it's nice to hear different perspectives, because we didn't all live the same life and see things from the same perspective. And so sometimes
Right.
people can really shine light on what you're trying to do. So I thank both of you for shining some light onto me, and maybe opening my eyes to some different perspectives, and giving me some food for thought.
Yes,
Yeah,
thank you so
definitely.
much.
You
And
too.
everyone for watching. Thank you. We'll catch you guys in the next one.
Bye, guys.